And I'm just going to record, pushing record so we can record this for any families who aren't able to join us. We'll send it out in a email tomorrow. But first, let me share my screen so we can get that.
While you're doing that, would you mind refreshing the deck? I made a little last minute addition.
All right, so I will share the deck. It's recording now. Maybe Miss Abby, if you don't mind sort of monitoring the chat or letting folks in, if more do join us, that would be great. And let's see, so I'm gonna present. So welcome, you've got the whole team here, the admin team here, myself, Scott, Garth Reeves is here, the other co-principal, Miss Abby, our dean, and Miss A just joined us as well. So all four of us are here with you. Great to see all of you once again. We have a robust agenda to get through today. Lots of important updates. You know, we're about halfway through the trimester, so we're really going to focus on updating you as far as where we are with our student learning plans, our portfolio exhibition process that students will be preparing for coming up here in a few weeks, some updates on testing and grading as well. And just as a disclaimer, I am also playing dad at the same time. So right off camera down here, I have our little 2-month-old. So I might be turning my camera off here or there as well, juggling that. So if you hear a few screeches in the background, don't be worried. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll start with sort of setting the circle. Garth, do you want to lead us through the acknowledgements before we get in with the meat of the agenda?
Sorry, I was muted. Absolutely, thank you, Scott. Yeah, I will first acknowledge the land that we gather on, even on Zoom, is the land of the first people of Seattle, the Coast Salish people, and specifically the Duwamish, past and present. And we just would like to honor and give gratitude for the land and the tribe. And as I have said before, this is a traditional practice that dates back pre-colonial times and is not performative, but is a way for us to show respect and to shed light on the fact that the Duwamish in particular and our native tribes are here and with us today. And this is a simple way to acknowledge and resist the erasure of that history and the erasure of the people. So we want to interrupt that and acknowledge. Also, we'd like to acknowledge the urgency around addressing racism actively and directly, and in our attempt to have an inclusive community where there's an opportunity for people to have an identity affirming, relevant, and culturally responsive experience in school. And that's very important to us as well. So with those two acknowledgements, we can proceed. Is that me? Am I transitioning to myself? Got it. So yeah, I wanted to talk and just take a minute, maybe 10 minutes or so, to ground us a little bit in some school model stuff. So, you know, Scott and I, we get in the trenches of, 2-year run to get the school open and had a lot of meetings with community and a lot of meetings with families, and then the rush of enrollment. And it occurred to us just the other day that, some families didn't ever get to attend a session where we really dug into the kind of why and how the school's put together. And so just thought we might ground ourselves really quick in some really key and important design elements of the school on top of what's easily visible so far to you as parents around courses and, how are we doing COVID safety and, academics and grades and testing, which we'll talk about in a second, but some really key fundamental things that we value as a school to get students prepared, challenged for a career and college in the 21st century. So let's talk about our learning cycle, which is really the key fundamental way that we look at the student experience. So you can see 4 parts of the cycle: plan, have a learning plan, develop, get a connection to your purpose, who you are, where you want to go, start to vision. As you've probably heard me say many, many times, one of the key elements of the school is we really start from the beginning around thinking about after high school. Like what's going to happen after high school. Set goals, monitor growth. That's all in that planning stage. And then we engage. What are the courses that you're taking? What are you going to do for leaving to learn? Who are you calling? What passion projects are you going to explore? How are you challenging yourself with your goals that you set? That's the engagement part. We're, as Scott said, about halfway through trimester 1 in that engagement section. And then we evaluate our work. And at Why Not You Academy, we do that through portfolio. While, again, we'll talk about grades in a little while, that's super important to know how students are doing. It's a great quick snapshot, but it's also important to see the work, to actually look at the work that students are doing, to have that portfolio start to be collected of their best work, how that is aligned to standards, and they'll start to pull things from that to create a portfolio for colleges and for careers. The work from the 9th grade portfolio, maybe it won't be in their, senior portfolio, but getting that practice, getting that habit of showing what you know, showing what you've done. And then finally, that reflection piece, and that's at exhibitions. Our first trimester 1 exhibitions will be coming up. We'll talk probably next month about scheduling that, but we would expect and hope families to come in to actually attend an exhibition. I'll dig into that in a little bit, and to assess, to help us assess, is your student being challenged? What is their challenge? What is their role? How can parents, the school, come together to set new goals for the second trimester? That is baked into our plan. We do this 3 times a year, this cycle, and over 4 years, you have 12 opportunities to develop a plan, dig into goals, show what you know, and to reflect and assess on your challenge and your learning. And as you might imagine, it gets deeper every single time, and it builds and builds. And that's something that we wanted to put back in front of us parents to let them know. I think I just said pretty much everything that's on this next slide, and it's a lot of words, so I'll just kind of briefly, but like why? It is, I think, important to ask questions when people say, well, why would you do that? Why do you do that instead of just sending out a progress report? Or why would you do that instead of let the grade talk? And so there's some really key fundamental things to what we would call an authentic assessment. So first is, most importantly, perhaps, is students learn how to learn effectively, how to set a vision, how to set goals, what organizational skills and habits do I need to achieve that? Again, the point of this is after high school, developing those things that we know from data and research make people successful. I've done an activity, I know we've done it at a few open houses, where I will put a question on the board. And I will say, what is the most important thing for your student to know? Maybe you can pick even 2 or 3, but the most important thing for your child, your student to know, to have, to be ready for success, whether in college or career, and let people put things up there. And what comes up there is things like confidence, ability to understand themselves, to appraise themselves, to be realistic about their gaps and their strengths. Learning how to navigate systems that are sometimes oppressive and discriminatory. How do I do that proactively without getting shut down or knocking me off my path? How to have a preference for long-term goals. Develop knowledge in a field of study. Go out and leave to learn and actually get hands-on experience. And let's talk about accountability. Accountability looks different when you have to stand in front, your mom, dad, grandma, aunt, your advisor, a mentor, and speak to what you did and speak to that learning. So that's sort of a little bit of the power and the purpose of why we do the cycle that way, and how that intersects with things like accountability and getting ready for the challenge of life in the 21st century. So I'll dig into a couple of pieces of this cycle and then pause for some questions. So as I think most folks have gathered by now, that the starts with planning, and we do have personal learning plans for every single student. Again, to identify, starting with that purpose. What are the things that motivate me and inspire me? What do I want to do? Not what do I want to be when I grow up, but who am I? Who do I want to be? What are my values? And that leads to, once we get a sense of that, and this changes over time. No 14-year-old is going to have this and be done, right? It evolves. We start there, and then we talk about a vision. Okay, so if you know that about yourself and sort of the values and the who you want to be, what's the vision for after high school? What are you thinking at this point? Let's put it down on paper so that we can work toward that, and then set long-term and short-term goals to achieve that. That's really the learning plan. I'll show you a quick example of one on the next slide. I know it's kind of small, but it matches the graphic that you just saw. purpose statement at the top, leaning right into vision. What do you want to do this year when you move to learn? Who do you want to talk to? What field do you want to explore? What interest are you going to develop? And then long-term goals. If I want to do that, if this is what I want to explore and this is who I want to be, then what are the long-term goals that I need to set? Where are those gaps? Where do I need to grow? And then short-term goals is really about the academic work in the courses, in the classes. What do I know right away in my reading, in my math, in my quantity, in my science? Like, what do I need to do in the short term as well? So that's a learning plan. All of your students have one. Again, 9th grade, first one. This first exhibition is trying this on and seeing and running into some accountability. It's part of the process, is having students grapple with this. Again, 3 times a year, 4 years, deeper every time. But everyone has one. Some are more complete than others, but if you can ask to see them, and we'll talk more about accessing that in a while. But they're there and they're being developed now for the first trimester. So that's the learning plan, the first part. And then the second part is engaging, and we know, or actually pause. Let me talk really quickly about goal setting and the importance. So this is kind of where the rubber hits the road. So if you have a purpose and you identify your identity and your values, and you have a vision, you're going to map out this year, here's the things you want to accomplish, then the obvious question for students, especially in the freshman year, is how do I do that? How do I get there? Some students have a sense of it. Some students need a lot of support. Some students need a little support. But this is about learning and doing and developing these habits over time. So we talk about goals in terms of short-term and long-term. I'll talk to you really quickly about how we talk about the content of goals on the next slide. Thank you, Scott. At Why Not You Academy, we really focus on 5 learning goal areas plus 1. So well-being, the goal is to be the best you can be, physically, mentally, your organizational skills, having a growth mindset, being able to practice mindfulness when things get stressful, when you encounter obstacles, right? Being in community, communication. Am I a good communicator? Developing my reading skills, my writing, speaking, listening, my college and career abilities. Can I use tech? Can I calendar? Can I email? Can I present at an exhibition? Can I schedule, right, my interview with my person in the community? Social reasoning, thinking like a scientist, being able to understand history and patterns and analyze issues, things that would happen in humanities class and in projects. Empirical reasoning, can I think like a scientist? Can I test things? Can I conduct an experiment and make a prediction? As Dr. Markham is doing labs in science and developing those skills. And again, the expectation is not only are they doing that in science, but they start to develop their own passion projects, their own internship projects, where we push into these skills too. So they're getting it from multiple areas. Quantitative reasoning, obviously our math skills. Can I calculate? Can I understand data? Data's coming at us all the time. Do I know how to look and see? Can I challenge a piece of data and ask good questions and kind of understand if somebody's trying to fool me or trick me? Do I know what's being said? And then that plus 1 is the leaning to learn, which we do know about, developing those interests and passions, going out into the community. So those are the way we talk about goals and frame goals. And then the last thing I'll say on goals is just long-term and short-term. How do we talk about those at Why Not You Academy? So when you're setting a long-term goal, that's for the year. That should be aligned and moving you closer to your vision, closer to that purpose that you identified on your learning plan. It should be relevant to you and it should be aligned. That's what we talk about at exhibitions. When you come to see your student, the portfolio will be there, but they're going to get up and talk about this. They're going to talk about, this was the vision I set. Here's what I did. Here's what I didn't do. Here's my goals. I achieved these. I didn't achieve these. Here's why. We want to be talking about these long-term goals, progress, growth, and next steps. Having you, the parent, involved with the advisor and the student to determine what are the next steps. What do you need to do to challenge yourself? How are you going to push in to get where you want to go? The short-term goals, as I already previewed, is really more focused on those learning areas that I said. How are you doing in your academic classes? This is what's present in the portfolio. So you can actually look and see. These are SMART goals, right? They're specific. They're timely to the trimester. they're connected, they're relevant to the learning that's going on in their classes. Okay, and final piece, I just want to talk a little bit about the purpose of exhibition. I've heard some energy on the last call from parents about students being nervous. It's totally okay. This is not about scaring anybody or gotcha. It's one student at a time. We can go small and like support a student who needs extra support. We can record. There's lots of flexibility, but I want to connect to the why. Why would we push on this and develop this skill over time? Well, the most obvious one is presentation skills, the skills that you need to communicate in the modern world. This helps develop them. Also, it's, again, they're able to showcase their learning and their process and take responsibility for that learning. There is no one in between. They have to own their learning and take responsibility for it and identify the growth, reflect on what happened. And this is really key. Number 5, as we discussed, assess and identify areas of improvement. No one has ever arrived anywhere. We can all improve. I improve every day. I try to do something better to make the school better. I take calls from parents. We're always improving and becoming confident in our ability to grow. So those are some of the reasons that exhibitions are really important and that we value them. And I think the last slide I had was just a little snapshot. This is real. This is the portfolio checklist. So when you come into the exhibition, to give you an example of what would be in there, is you're going to see the learning plan at the top, the learning cycle reflection that will have students write. This is a serious piece of writing that's expected to be revised and really to dig into how they did on those goals. And then you can see the evidences that are required in that portfolio, from leading to learn. Where are the questions that you asked, the notes you took from your interview, the rubric that analyzes how you did on that, your reflection, next steps. You want to start talking about that. In Project Lab, we have the Food Matters project that will be due, Mango Language Report. In Humanities, there's the Pandemic Art Project, which are fantastic. We had the whole staff do a gallery walk. The student art was very beautiful, very heavy, and very cool. They're doing the Roots project now, and then the trimester will cap off with a narrative essay. So those would be in the portfolio. They can choose one of those pieces. Their Lexia report. How are they doing on hitting their literacy and developing their reading skills, which Scott will talk about in a minute. Math, this is not done. I'm adding a few more things, but they have a standards tracker that they use in math to identify the standards in their course. And there'll be some other pieces there. And in science, you can see they just completed the COVID-19 final project. So those are done. And then they have some choice pieces that they could do from various different labs. And then finally, letting them have some choice. There may be something that's not on that list that they're proud of, something that they learned, a goal that they set for themselves, a project that they did that they might want to show. And that's where that student choice piece comes up. So that's just a quick, I know that was a lot of information, but I just wanted to bring that to the front. So while we are in school, we're in our courses, we're getting out and getting ready to leave to learn. I just wanted to paint that picture of the cycle and how that happens 3 times a year. And again, that first exhibition will be coming up in December. We'll talk more about scheduling that at the next FAC. This is a Q&A, just again, with a lot of information. I want to pause. There may be questions that can come in the chat, or if folks want to come off mute and ask a question, happy to just pause for a couple seconds if anyone has any questions about what I presented.
Hi, I'm Caleb's dad, and I was just wondering when I should expect to see that from Caleb, because I haven't seen his, goals that have been set out that he's decided, hey, this is my goal for the future. I haven't seen any of that yet. So yeah. I'm just wondering when we as parents will see that, and if maybe in the future we can get some updates from advisors, counselors, stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So for clarifying question, you are looking at a learning plan that's blank, or probably what's more likely is you haven't even seen the learning plan yet. Just want to clarify, right?
Yes.
Got it. The second one, yeah, okay, yeah, figure. So everyone has one. So the first thing I would say is ask Caleb to show you his learning plan. That's step one. I haven't seen Caleb's in recently, so I couldn't tell you. It should definitely have a purpose on it. It should have a vision on it. There may be work. The long-term goals are probably being developed, but it should have a purpose. It should have a vision, and it should have some short-term goals that are already developed. So it's in progress, but it is there, and you should ask to see it. So that's the first answer to the question. Secondly, around advisor connection, yes, absolutely. As we have started the year, systems are coming on, advisors are starting to reach out, what we call one-to-ones with students where they help that, and reaching out to parents. So it's a little bit different in every room, but yes, you could and should expect contact from advisors. And it's kind of right in time in the sense of, again, halfway through, exhibitions coming out, we're doing all of this same learning that I'm showing you today is coming out through advisory to students too. So you're kind of on the same track with your student. So it's, I don't want to minimize the need for communication, but also just want to assure that it's timely, like it's coming at the same time. So that I guess the intensity for the student is going to kind of raise as we get closer to exhibition as well. But short answer, ask Caleb to see his learning plan. It'll be in advisory, in his Google Classroom and advisory, and he can open his computer and sit right next to you and show you that. And in fact, it would be amazing if you would ask Caleb questions. It's like, why did you set that goal? Or, why do you not have any goals? Help me, let's talk it through. Or, oh, interesting, I didn't know that was a purpose or a vision that you were aligned to. All of that stuff is amazing when you can do that. And you'll do that at the exhibition, but there is no reason for you to wait. You can ask for those things now.
That's a good answer. Thank you. I've asked, but teenagers. So
I'll work on it. I took a note. I'll sit with Caleb and look at his learning plan and get him ready to talk with you about it. That seems totally fair.
I'd like to piggyback on that, if that's okay. Do they, is it once and done? I have seen the learning plan. I'm trying to recall right now if it's, so if what he has on there, I will want to go back and revisit for sure. But is that something that they themselves revisit? I guess my question is, how often do they look at it? When do they look at it? They know that they're, working towards the goal, or are they just looking at this as, oh, it's just an assignment I will revisit as exhibition gets closer or whatnot?
Right. So the answer is both, in the sense of right now, I want to set good expectations so you don't all rush out and show your student, and we have to train them up. And part of that is getting through the first exhibition. So the expectation, the ideal is this is a living and working document. This is definitely not an assignment that we do once and then we check it again at the exhibition. But remember, that's what they're learning right now, literally almost at the same time. So next week, that deck that I just blew through really fast for you, that will go out in advisory to students and it'll be spaced out. So they've got their learning plan. We've been just going slowly. Let's do our purpose. Let's do our vision. And we'll start to connect those dots over the next 5 weeks for them as well. So it's a little bit of both. Am I surprised that a student might have like, oh yeah, I did my purpose statement. I haven't done anything with that since. Totally appropriate in halfway through the first trimester of the 9th grade. But no, long-term, the expectation and the whole point of working to the exhibition is that it's a living working document that they touch all the time. And again, that's what that one-to-one conversation with the advisory is. And what Hall put in the chat is exactly spot on. A living working document, and we're always tweaking it. And the big times, the official times that we for sure is when you as parents sit in that room with the advisor and the student presents that plan. And then there's always 15 minutes at the end of that exhibition to talk explicitly about next steps. What are you going to do now? What's your new goal? Well, that was weak. Like you need that wasn't challenging. What did you learn there? Or, wow, I'm really celebrating. So it's both and. It's not always all bad or all good, right? It's like real life. So that's what we're headed toward.
I have a question. Hi, I'm Josh's mom. And is there a parent portal or anything where I can get a daily snapshot or a weekly snapshot of like what he's doing, how he's doing, his assessments, what his teachers are saying. Because by the time he comes home from school, he has no words left and school is fine. So like I haven't seen a plan. I don't know what his plan is. Like I want to be accountable. I want to help him process through this plan.
Yes,
And
yes.
he's like, yeah, everything's going good, Mom. I'm doing good, but
She is. Yeah. So
thanks.
yes. So we're going to talk in a second about grades and accessing. We don't have a portal. We'll kind of run you through. It's Google Classroom is the answer, and
Okay.
we'll kind of run you through a snapshot. We should just own that it's taken us longer to turn on the parent part of that, to send out the access to that than we thought. We talked about it at the last meeting, and we'll kind of close that loop tonight. But yeah, so I know you've been waiting, and there's really just no other way to just to be transparent, honest, that it's there, and we'll show it to you for proof. But it just took us a little longer to get the parent permission pushed out. But when you get that, you'll be able to see every class. Go to each class, see the assignments. I'm getting ahead of myself. It's going to be on the deck in a few minutes. So hold that thought about the portal. No, it's totally perfect. Hold the thought about the portal, but let me return. What you won't see on the portal is the learning plan. I mean, it's there, like you can click it through there, but it's not graded, right? That's something you want to sit with and like kind of work alongside with and ask questions about. But we'll talk about the portal in just a second.
Okay, so I'm trying not to be a hover mother and trying to let him do that, but I kind of need to get a hands-on so I can help with that accountability portion because I know my kid. So like how what's the best?
You are not the only person to say that. I'm sure the chat is gonna blow up in a second with like, I already see a +1. You're not wrong. You're not the only person to say that. You're totally right. You just got to get it turned on for you. Is the long and the short of it. We'll show you an example of it in a quick second so you know what to expect. But yeah, no, it's a both and. You need the sort of longer like conversations with him around his learning plan, but you also need to see, I'm a parent of 3. I got a freshman, I got a 7th grader. So I know you want to go and like, what is missing? Why is it missing? Why did you get that grade? So yes, you're not wrong. You're absolutely on point.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question. How often, and kind of to go along with that same aspect, how often are the kids getting homework? They get homework every night? Because my child tells me he doesn't have homework some nights.
Yeah, well, that is, so we talked about this at the last meeting, and we'll talk about it at this meeting and every meeting until, forever. We have homework. Don't let anybody tell you that. It's actually going to come up in a minute, but I'll give you the headlines now. First thing is, should be reading every single day.
Right, okay.
Every student has a book from in humanities class that they're reading and journaling on and doing seminars on. So every day we should be seeing 25, 30 minutes of reading. On top of that, we have a program, and this is what Scott's going to talk about in a second, called Lexia, that is specifically designed to get kids their vocabulary, grammar, and their comprehension happening up. It's an intervention. It's an online program that does that. And we're expecting 25 minutes a night of that to the extent possible, and we're not seeing it. And so I need to lean into parents to message like they need to get on this. And Scott will show you the data and kind of what we're seeing and talk about other testing that's coming up. But that's the second thing is Lexia. So reading, Lexia, and then every single week, the math team gives a math packet, depending on which math students are in. They give a math packet to students to work on, to practice sets, because math is the kind of skill that you have to learn and practice. And that can be done at any time. It comes out on Monday, it's due on Friday. So those are 3 things that happen every night or week in the math packet that you should be asking for and expecting. Now, it's true that some students might get that math packet done before Friday for sure. And maybe they're coming home and saying, well, I don't have any homework, I did it. But just so you know, and you can ask to see it, again, the book, Lexia, the online platform, and the math packet. There will be other homework. We're a project-based school. And so as the projects get deeper and start to come, kids can't finish all that in a day. And so homework will develop naturally from the accountability to the project work and to their goals. So we don't just assign, 30 minutes in science, 30 minutes in humanities, 30 minutes in math, 30 minutes in project lab, right? We want it to be more authentic. But at the same time, we are telling you directly, and we will follow up in a minute about Lexia, reading for 30 minutes, Lexia for 25 minutes, and a weekly math packet. So that is a no-brainer expectation for everybody. There is a way to see how much time is on Lexia. I'm not entirely sure if parents can see it. Abby might be able to help me with that. But guess what's in their portfolio? And we can ask at exhibition. Not that you have to wait till then, but a Lexia report is something that they're accountable to in their portfolio and at exhibition. So again, not saying don't ask about it until then and wait, but yeah, absolutely we are pushing on that.
Yes, to kind of answer that question too. So once a student logs into Clever and they click on Lexia, they will see the reading part, the comprehension, the grammar, and the word study and how much time they've used. And on the right side, there's another little box that says your progress. So when students log in, they can click on your progress and it will show these two circles. One circle will show how many units they've completed in that week. The other circle will show how many minutes. So if the circles are not fully filled in, that means they are not done with Lexia. If that doesn't make sense, I can totally connect with parents one-on-one. If you say, can you connect with me about Lexia? And we can work on those little details because it could be confusing and it's probably better if I show you.
And can Lexia be logged on with any computer? Like say if I had his user password and I wanted to log to see where he's at, I can do that at any time. It doesn't have to be the laptop that was given to him, or can I just be on my own laptop and log through their website?
So I have never actually tried that, but if you have your student's email and password, you can access all of your student stuff. So
Okay.
because they use their email and password on Google to log into Lexia. So
Okay.
my answer is yes, but I've never tried it myself. So I would love to try it and see, because it theoretically, if you log into Chrome using your student's information, you should be able to access everything.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. Let's see. In the interest of time, I think we'll put there's more question and answer time. So if you've got another question on this, great. But I want to move, I think, forward to the next section.
Yeah. So thank you, Garth. Speaking to a couple points of data that we're going to be seeing on the student portfolios specifically, that you should be looking for, and we'll see definitely at the exhibition in December, kind of fall into two areas as it relates to assessments. Some of these are, one of them, Lexia, is one that we just administered recently, so I'll share kind of the overall school data on that, and MAP and Smarter Balanced are ones that are coming up here soon that we'll give you a heads up on here in a minute. And then grades, again, transitioning to talk about accessing those grades through Google Classroom. Abby's going to speak a little bit about once that's live here in a couple days, like how will you be able to make sense of what you see on there? So that's what we'll speak about for the rest of the time we have here. So first, Lexia. So just talking like brass tacks, like what is it exactly? It's so first, what our students did a couple weeks ago is they took the initial diagnostic assessment, which measures reading in the areas of word study, grammar, and comprehension. And our plan is to administer this about 3 more times throughout the year so we can track progress that students are making in each of those areas, word study, grammar, and comprehension. What the platform does is it basically creates online lessons that are at the student's level that will gradually support student growth. Depending on where your student scored, initially it recommends a certain number of minutes per week that they should engage in the Lexia platform. And if they do that, and one would expect that growth will occur by the end of the year. So that lesson plan, or the minutes that they prescribe for your student every week, is something that's differentiated based on their individual results. So the initiative that we started was based or centered around this Lexia implementation plan, which I'll get to in a second here, was developed based on the initial results that we see here on the right. So this just came after we assessed all students in, well, you can see in those 3 areas and the blue bands representing the light blue, how many scored in like a foundational K through 2nd grade level, intermediate 3rd through 5th grade level, the darker blue, and then the darkest blue, the navy blue, is like the advanced, the 6th to 8th grade level, so scoring at a middle school level. And you can see in the area of word study, most of our students, 67% were in that intermediate zone. For grammar, about half our students, most of them were in the foundational area, and then a majority of our students scored in that intermediate zone for comprehension as well. So this gave us a snapshot into, you know, our student body and where they're coming from in those each of those 3 areas when it comes to reading. And so we developed a plan to have students engage in the humanities class at least twice a week in their Lexia lessons online. And that's happening, and we saw that happening typically on Tuesdays and Thursdays in that class. In addition to that, in advisory, we're asking advisors to support students in engaging in at least 25 minutes of that once a week. And we're seeing that happen as well. The one thing where we could improve and anticipate that after we've had this call and shared the plan with you here today, we'll probably see an uptick in this, thankfully, but that's seeing students engage in it at home as their homework, and at least 25 minutes a day, 5 times a week. So I think that engaging in that level of involvement in the Lexia platform, we'll start to see these numbers shift and anticipate we'll see quite a bit of growth throughout the year. Couple other things on testing, and then we can pause for some questions related to this subject of assessment. Another indicator that's going to give us a snapshot into where students are and how we can hold ourselves as a school accountable in supporting students growing academically is the MAP assessment. And this measures students also in reading and in the areas of mathematics. So we have not administered this test yet. Our staff actually were just trained on it today on how to administer the test. And that will happen, the first one, reading, will happen next Wednesday from 8 to 12 o'clock. Again, that's an early dismissal day. So that whole morning will be devoted to this reading assessment in advisory. And then 2 weeks from today, on November 3rd, we'll administer the math assessment. So coming up here, after we proctor both those tests, we'll have Lexia, the MAP reading, and the MAP math data that should give us a much clearer picture of where our students are. And we'll provide data that students can grapple with and set goals around as it relates to their learning plans and their portfolios. So expect to see this data here coming up soon in the next few weeks once we get through these tests. And again, we'll share that with you as well, so you know where your students are scoring. And again, the MAP test is something we'll also revisit again in the spring so that we can see how much growth was made throughout the year. So Lexia, MAP, it's assessment season. There's a lot of them happening lately. And unfortunately, due to COVID, the 8th grade year is one of the years where the standardized state tests, the Smarter Balanced and the Comprehensive Assessment of Science, are administered. That did not happen last year in 8th grade, and the state decided that this year's 9th graders, so all of your students, have to take that test here this year. So they will be taking the 8th grade test November 8th through 10th. And so that will be another round of testing that students will engage with. So lots of tests coming up. We'll be preparing students, supporting staff and supporting students through the testing. At home, how you can help your students prepare for these exams. So try to make sure that they're getting sleep. You know, we serve breakfast at school every day. At 8 o'clock, we have grab and go breakfast. Not every student opts to take one, but if you could encourage your student to take one as they enter school every day, or to eat before they leave home, that would be fantastic so that they're coming ready to do well on the test. Water bottles, oftentimes we're seeing some students, we don't have an endless supply of cups, and to be environmentally conscious, we'd love to see students carrying water bottles. We can support some students with getting those if they don't have one, but make sure they come hydrated and have a water bottle that day. And then finally, headphones and laptop chargers are things students are quite frequently forgetting at home that we've noticed, and they need both of these for these exams. So if you could make sure to remind your student to charge their laptop before coming to school that day, and to bring the charger in case their battery drains, that would be helpful, as well as remembering to bring their headphones, because we do have a limited supply that we can provide students, but it adds up quickly when we have to give them out to multiple students. So we'll send a reminder out about this after this meeting. So tomorrow, expect another reminder about this, and before those testing dates. Again, you'll be hearing from us, just reminding you about these items. Okay, so as far as assessment, that's sort of the updates where we're at right now. We'll get into grading in a second, but I know there's haven't checked the chat. Oh, that's Garth talking. So I'll just pause. If there's any questions as it pertains to assessment, we'll leave some space for that before we get into grades.
You see that question, Scott? Are the assessments mostly all day?
The map assessments that'll be happening the next 2 Wednesdays, anticipate they'll probably take 60 to 90 minutes. It could change a little bit per student. It depends how long it takes some students to get up and running, but those will not be all day. There will be an advisory taking that exam, and we'll have other work for them to do once they complete their map tests. The Smarter Balance tests are typically longer. They've made them a little shorter this year, just to save time, and so they've adjusted them down a bit. Those should take probably anywhere from, I think, 60 to 90 minutes per day, and we're going to space them out over a couple different days. So there's a reading test, a math, and a science test, and they're all in that 60 to 90 minute range. So would not expect that your student will be testing 8 hours a day. We would not want to make them do that, and would hopefully try to adjust the schedule so that they're not cramming through all the tests in a given day.
Jennifer Huxtable just said that their minds would break down if they did that all day.
Yes, we don't want to do that to our kids. We're very empathetic to that. All right, well, maybe we can transition and talk about grading a little bit. It's Google Classrooms.
Before we go, I have a question.
Oh, yeah.
I'm Jade's mother, so I am concerned about with this testing. Are they gonna get adequate breaks? Because Jade actually has a 504 plan from the school district she came from, and I wanted to know, is it being applied or is it going to be applied here at Why Not You? And definitely in that definitely in taking this test next, I guess, starting next week.
Yeah, there's only one right answer to that question, and it's yes, because that's a legal requirement, and absolutely. We actually have 2 accommodation rooms set up for, there's many reasons students need accommodations. You mentioned 504 plans, also individual education plans. So yes, those are legally required and also the right thing to do, and yes. So yeah, we'll have accommodation rooms. Think classic accommodations are smaller space, quieter space, breaks, as you mentioned. You can use certain tools, calculators, speech to text, things like that. Every student's 504 or their IEP will list the specific accommodations. I know you already know this. We'll list the specific accommodations that they're entitled to, and we provide those, yes.
Thank you.
All right, I'll turn it over to Abby. We'll jump into grading, and then at the end, we'll have another Q&A portion for more questions or anything else you'd like to inquire about.
All right, thank you, Scott. So Google Classroom. So the moment we've all been waiting for. The staff here at Why Not You Academy has been working very hard to have Google Classroom ready for parents to see and be able to understand. So Google Classroom is now ready. So if you were to log into your students' Google Classroom and look at their coursework or their work, you should be able to see their grade. Their grade would look something like this. So this is an example of a student. So you would have to go to each individual class, like Math Block 1, and you would find your student's name. You can see all the assignment scores on the right side. They're out of 100%. And in a few seconds, I will show you what each of the percentages mean, or what it means when it's 79 out of 100 or 50 out of 100, etc. Some of the things we want you to pay attention to, of course, are the missing assignments, ensuring that they are making those up or going to office hours or even staying after school or before school in study hall. I will show a few more slides about all that stuff, but we strongly encourage you all to sit next to your student and work with your student to look at their grades and have them reflect with you on what they should be doing to show growth every single day. On here, you'll see a few different things, and we're going to talk about it in the next few slides. So the summative scale. So the summative scale is that final grade that you would see at the top. So in the example student that we have, so Scott, if you can go one slide back, right? This student says currently they have a 92.13. So now if we go to the next slide, this student would have a minus. A 92 would fall under the 95 through 90, which means it's an A minus. So that grade is actually something we don't talk to students every single day about, because we don't really want them to focus on that final summative grade. What we want them to work on is showing growth every single day. But if you did want to know what their summative grade would be, if that was the last day of school or last day of the trimester, this is how we will calculate that. Then on the next slide, we will see what students actually see on a constant basis. So all of their work is graded on a scale from 0 through 4. Each of the numbers it correlates to a certain percentage. So they still, when they go on Google Classroom and see a 79, that actually means that they got a 2 out of 4. A 2 out of 4 is essentially a nearly met. And what we want students to focus on is just having a growth mindset. Every day we speak in the language of learning, and we focus and teach students to focus on how they can learn more, how they can start getting 3s or getting 4s on certain standards that they may be working on. So that's why we focus on the numbers and just the mindset, right? So a 0 means it's incomplete or it's missing. A 1 means it was not yet met. So we encourage students to redo these assignments. A 1.5 through 2.5 means it was nearly met. Also, we want them to redo those or work on fixing those. And then a 3 and above means that they met the standard or they exceeded the standard. So this is what your students will see on a daily basis. I see a couple of questions in the chat, so we'll definitely talk about those. Next slide. So then within the grades, you will see a couple categories and weights. So there are 3 categories that every class has. The first one is a performance-based assessment. We are a project-based school, so projects and the end results of projects, the products of the projects, are worth more. They are worth 50% of your student's grade. Then after that, we have discourse. Discourse in every class looks a little bit different, but is essentially whenever they are writing any reflections, or whenever they're having any seminars or discussions about their work, that discourse qualifies as 30% of their grade. And then last but not least is preparation. Preparation is 20% of their overall grade, and it's really just all the work that they were doing to lead up to that final product, because we want to make sure that we're still tracking all of that. So any smaller assignments, any smaller reflection, or any classwork or homework, basically all of that is preparation for the big projects. So that is 20%. So on the next slide, we're going to see a couple examples of what these are in all the different classes. And I'm really going to focus on the performance-based assessments. So in humanities, your students finished this Pandemic Life project, and they're currently working on the Roots project, which is due next week. This Pandemic Life project were really great, and we were so excited to see those and see a reflection of what the pandemic has been like for our students. It was really eye-opening for all the staff, and I'm sure all the students, because they had a gallery walk and all of that. So their final grade for this Pandemic Life is now on Google Classroom. In science, they are also working on different projects, and they've had different tests. The project that they just finished is the COVID project that was due this week. In math, the heavier stuff, the performance stuff, is the ICANNs, the unit assessments, as well as the other math projects that they're working on throughout the trimester. And then last but not least, in Project Lab, students are currently working on their Food Matters project. So all students are in a group of 4 with a certain topic about food matters, and they're working on their project now. So this project is not due yet, but it's actually something they're going to work on the entire trimester. So you can see their discourse and preparation. There are some assignments for every class, even though they look a little bit different. Next slide. Now, so an incomplete, it basically what we want it to mean for students, and what we will continue to tell them, is that it really is an opportunity to resubmit your work. A no credit, both of these look like a 50% or a 0 on Google Classroom. They are just opportunities to redo the work. So we really want students to focus on going to their advisor, going to their teacher, and discussing how they can make up this work, because we don't want any student to end the trimester with an incomplete or a no credit. But if someone is not doing any work, this is how we would let you know that as well. So with that, on the very last slide is a little bit about study hall. So we have after school teachers' office hours is Monday, Tuesday, and Friday from 3 to 4 every day. We do have a lot of students in a lot of the clubs, but if they need to go to an office hours, we would totally want them to go to math office hours and catch up on their work before they decide to go to a club. With that, we also have study hall, which is a different area where everybody is just doing homework. And that's also after school. And we recently just started a before school study hall. So we are now opening our doors at 7 a.m. To make sure that students are not outside in the rain and in the cold, but they come in instead, and they have the opportunity to do work and have a study hall space in the morning from 7 to 7:45. So ultimately, we really want students to utilize the class time, but also talk to teachers, go to office hours, go to study hall, and advocate for themselves to make up some work, or ask for more help if they are getting 3s and want to aim to get 4s, things like that. So this is a little bit about grading. So with that, if there are any questions about grading or Google Classroom, now would be a good time to ask. So I see a question in the chat. What time is the before school study hall? So before school study hall is from 7 to 7:45 a.m. How are grades handled when in a group? So students are still getting individual grades even when they are in a group. And there is a rubric for every assignment that is a group work. So for example, I know in Project Lab, they're working on a big Food Matters project that usually has either a group of 3 or 4 students, not more than 4. And students are working on performance tasks, right? The big performance tasks, but also preparation. So the grades, they're still getting their individual grades for some of the smaller parts, the preparation, but the final group grade with using the rubric will give all the students in the group that grade. Great question. So if a student is not doing their part, I totally recommend that they talk to that teacher. Of course, and if they need to talk to the teacher privately, that they do talk to the teacher and let them know about that so that they can problem solve that together. Yeah, because there are many checks even within one big group project, I expect that the teachers will talk to each other. The student can talk to the teacher about that. So it doesn't, one grade for the group doesn't negatively impact all the students. And it's hopefully a problem we can solve before the end of the project. So if your student has mentioned any of that, please tell them to talk to their advisor or come to us, and we're happy to support them with that conversation. All right. So I guess with that, if there are any questions later on, or once you're sitting in front with your student and looking at their Google Classroom grades, please don't hesitate to reach out to us, and we are happy to problem solve things with you and make sure that your students are growing every single day. That's my email. Thank you, Halma.
All right, so before we part ways, I recognize it's 5:30. I want to respect everyone's time. Just a couple upcoming dates to mark your calendars for. Next Family Advisory Council, November 17th. Again, we'll focus a little bit on some updates as it pertains to fundraising and preparing for those exhibitions, which will be December 1st through the 3rd. So please make sure you mark your calendars, and you will get a specific exhibition time scheduled on one of those days. You don't need to commit to all 3 of those days, but we'll go engage in that process here in the next few weeks. So that's pretty much it. Before we say goodbye, I just wanted to say thank you. You know, we know and understand how difficult and challenging life is right now, and we appreciate each of you, and having your children at our school. Really have enjoyed getting to know each of them, each of their gifts that they bring, and enjoy the community that we're starting to build. So thank you. If you ever need anything, please do not hesitate to reach out. If you have questions, reach out to any one of us. Be happy to give you a call. And so I hope everyone stays safe and enjoys the end of this first trimester as we look forward to exhibitions. And we'll be in touch soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.